girls, and in high school, young women. When I went to law school, when I was first admitted in 1979, it was predominantly men. The very quarter that I was accepted in 1977, we were predominantly men. That summer, in the entering class, was almost 50-50 men to women. I mean, it really was, as my generation moved through, you could really see a change in opportunities. You had Title IX come across in athletics. Before that, there weren't the opportunities for young girls and women, but you've seen that dramatic shift. Now, why are we going backwards? Because it seems like that's what we're doing. It seems like we're going backwards.
There apparently was a paradigm shift that didn't stick.
Well,
honestly,
we just never completed it. We never finished it. But now we're going backwards. And if we follow these policies, we take away the rights of women for their own self-determination. And that's, if you want to call that a war on women, you can call that a war on women. But if you look at the subject matter of it, it's clearly not in the interest of most women. These policies are not in the interest of most women, and they're driven by some of them religious beliefs.
Yes.
Some of them social issues. You know, I thought we had, you know, I was at a forum last night where term limits was brought up again. And I thought, you got to be kidding me. We discussed term limits in this state in 1990. When I first ran for office, it was a big issue. And we did away with it because we thought it was not a good idea. And now it circles back. And, you know, there's an old adage that says democracy needs a common enemy. Because if democracy doesn't have a common enemy, you turn on each other. And it seems as if that's what we're doing all of a sudden in this country. We're turning on each other. We are socially fighting within ourselves. We're going to fight an issue of abortion that was decided. We're going to fight an issue of women's rights, which we thought we were moving in the right direction. Now we want to go backwards. We're fighting on contraception and health care. Those are issues we should have decided long ago, and we should have moved forward. We're fighting over issues like immigration and things of that nature. We've turned our attention on each other, and the war of words is so angry and so distorted that the truth gets lost. And that's the real tragedy, because we don't survive as a democratic society if we can't speak the truth to each other and disagree in a manner that's respectful. If we can't do that, we can't solve our problems, and we can't discuss these issues. And unfortunately, the rhetoric becomes so strong and is 24 hours a day in all markets, television, radio, etc. And the people that lose in that debate and the people that lose in that discussion are the American people, because we're less informed and we don't get to talk honestly about solutions. So I want to talk honestly about a lot of problems today. Because I can tell you one of the things that's frustrating about running for the United States Senate in Texas is you drive 8 hours and you speak 4 minutes.
We're certainly going to give you a lot of time today to speak. Sure. And what I really want to do now, Paul, is we kind of drug you in the middle of a conversation because I could kind of see you over there going, you know, I got something to say about this. And so I went ahead and brought you in. But I want to digress now back to who is Paul Sadler and where do you come from, kind of thing. Don't necessarily, well, maybe if you want to tell us everything about you, we certainly have the time to do that. But I want people to understand who you are and what you've done in preparation for where you want to go with the state of Texas and with this country. Because running for U.S. Senate, we get caught up in the idea that you're from Texas and so you're going to be representing Texas, and obviously you will if elected. But you're going to be sitting in one of the chambers of a very important institution in this country and overseeing many things, including financing of our military and so many other things other than things for the state of Texas. It's things for this country. So, you know, I want to go into that conversation, but I know that, well, let's start where you want to start. What do you want us to know about you? Because I want, at the end of this, I want people to know who Paul Sadler is.
Okay, thank you. Let me say first, the United States Senate is the greatest institution in the world, in my opinion. It's an honor just to run. It's an honor to run from a state like Texas that is so huge and so diverse And we say that all the time, and for our listeners outside of Texas, I know that sounds like bragging, but it's just a fact of life. It's 800 miles east to west. It's 800 miles north to south. It is as diverse as 6 or 7 different states. And to get to sit in a colonial, like I did last week, for 2 hours and listen to people talk about their hardships and their work ethic and what their American dream is. To come to southeast Texas, which is oil and gas refinery country, and oil and gas country is so different from the valley. To go to the panhandle of Texas, which Tornado Alley, I lived in Pampa, it's just such a great diverse state that it's. I hope people will give me a few minutes and just hear me out about some issues, because I think it's important that people understand the magnitude. And I want to say a minute, just one word real quick. I think to a large measure we are looked past in Texas. I think recent history has made it easy for the media and the Democratic Party. And some of you are going to like what I'm about to say. But I think the recent past has made it easier for the national media and the Democratic Party to ignore us. You know, my mother was polled by the DSCC and asked to give money to Elizabeth Warren's campaign.
You're not going to find anybody in this room that's going to disagree with that. We're not happy about the fact that we've got fights here.
I know.
We don't need to be supporting these other states. We believe there are Democrats right here in the state of Texas, and we should be talking to them.
When Elizabeth Warren was introduced, when I first met her, when the president introduced her, I didn't physically meet her. I just read about her. I was so enamored by her background and who she was that I sent an email out to my children. I have 5 children, and every woman in the workplace I know that said, and every man said, you need to read about this lady. This woman is remarkable. And so it's not about Elizabeth. It's just the fact that we have a race down here too, and it gets ignored, and that's unfortunate. But here we go. I was born in Freer, Texas, South Texas. I moved to Corpus Christi immediately. My dad worked for Sun Oil Company. He worked off Padre Island. I lived there until right before Hurricane Carla, and then I moved out to Kermit, Texas, which is out in West Texas, just south of Odessa, Midland area. We lived there, and there's actually a picture of me at about the 3rd grade with a tumbleweed that's taller than I am. So I get it. I've been out in West Texas. I understand what drought is and what dust storms are, and the oil and gas industry in West Texas. We moved from Kermit, Texas, in my middle school years up to Pampa in the Panhandle. My dad used to say, in order to love West Texas and the Panhandle, you have to wear out a pair of shoes. It's a completely different world because it's open spaces. The weather is harsh. The environment is harsh. People are more tied to the land in West Texas, it seems, than we are in East Texas. But it's a wonderful place to live. And I went through my formative years in middle school there. We went briefly out to Ventura, California, where my dad drilled oil and gas wells off the coast of California, and then moved back into, for a very short period of time, in Louisiana, where he did drilling off the Gulf Coast in the southeastern part of the United States. And then I went to Baylor University, which is in Waco in Central Texas, and ultimately started practicing law in East Texas and lived there since 1982. So I come from a family that's oil and gas. It's what we do. But over the last 5 years, I've also been executive director of the Wind Coalition. I left that position when I decided to run for the United States Senate. I've been responsible for the development of policies involving wind energy from Texas to Nebraska. And the understanding of electricity and rates and the development of those projects and how it fits into our grid system has been fascinating to me. So it's a diverse background. It's a background that's from all regions of our state. You don't have to tell me about the drought in West Texas. I understand it. You don't have to tell me about tornadoes in Panhandle. I get it. You don't have to tell me about the devastation of hurricanes in the southern part of the state. I've seen it. I understand it. You don't have to tell me about the piney woods and the destruction of our piney woods and lignite and those things, because I've lived there. So in many ways, I like to say that my history and my background is tailor-made for service in the United States Senate, particularly a state this big and this diverse. In 1991, I'll briefly go through this and I'll stop. In 1991, I was elected state representative. I served from 1991 to 2003. I left when my youngest son was involved in an accident. He had a closed head injury, was in a coma for 4 days. We went through about 2 years of therapy and recovery. He's now doing wonderfully. He's doing great in college. He's in professional golf management programs, so he has a great golf game, and so he's doing wonderful. But we went through a period of time that was very touch and go with him. We didn't know if he would live, and then we didn't know if he would ever speak or walk again. And so I left the legislature to spend time with him, and because our family needed it. While I was in the legislature, though, I co-authored the Education Code of Texas. I passed the first mandate relief bill, part of Senate Bill 7. It was rolled into it that saved $350 million for our school system. Then co-authored the Education Code and gave 3 consecutive teacher pay raises for Texas, in the first time in the history of our state. I also passed the largest property tax cut in the history of our state at the time, $3.8 billion, and still funded $2 billion of new money into education. I passed a public school employee health insurance plan for our teachers and public school employees for the first time in the history of our state. For that work, I was named on the 10 best list of legislators 4 out of 6 sessions by Texas Monthly. And so I think it's a record that Democrats should be proud of. I'm proud of it, and I think that we can be proud of it. But the fact of the matter is, as Democrats in the state of Texas, for over 165 years, we built the state. It was the Democratic Party that was the majority party. And we built the highways, the higher educational institutions, the public education system, the healthcare system that's in Texas. We built the policies in place for our airport development. We're the ones that did all that. The Republican Party has only been the dominant party in the state of Texas since 2003. And you're hard-pressed to tell me a single thing other than build some toll roads that they've accomplished. And so I'm baffled sometimes whenever I hear people in Texas.
Do they actually build those toll roads with tax dollars and then pay us to drive on them like I think they do?
It's a private contract.
Okay.
But, I mean, the truth of the matter is, they haven't even been good stewards with the state that we gave them. In the last session, they cut listen to this. In the last session, we have a demographic. People tell us, the economists tell us, that the demographics in the state of Texas are going to double over the next 50 years. Mm-hmm. Okay? Our population is going to double. But statistically, it increases most dramatically at 65 and over and 28 and younger. So what does that tell us? It means that we're going to have more pressure on our public school system, and we're going to have more health care needs in the future. And so what do our leaders? This is the Perry Dewhurst administration. Dewhurst running for the United States Senate on the Republican side. Governor Perry, everyone's now familiar with in our country. What do they do? What do? They cut $5 billion out of public education. For the first time in the known history of the state of Texas, we don't cover new kids coming into the system. No, we don't pay for them. For the very first time. Facing that future, we cut public education. And then they don't fund the last 4 months of our Medicare, Medicaid, our health care system. The last 4 months, they don't even fund it for 65 and over. So they're not even being good stewards of the state that we've built. And that's the tragedy in what's going on here. So I think we have a lot to talk about, and I want to talk about national issues as well, but I'm tired of people apologizing for being Democrats. We have a great and glorious history in this state. There have been more United States senators from the Democratic Party than ever from the Republican Party from the state of Texas. And so I think we have a tremendous future ahead of us, but not in the direction we're going. We're going in the wrong direction. Now, let me just say this finally. Rick Perry decided he'd run for president of the United States. David Dewhurst, our lieutenant governor, decided he would run for the United States Senate. Let me just explain to you what they're leaving, the shape they're leaving our state. They know that the next legislature that comes into session is going to face that shortfall in education. And they know there's going to be at least a $6 to $8 billion shortfall in health care. If I was looking at $11 to $12 billion shortfall, maybe I would run away too. But that's not the right thing to do. And in my world, we don't promote failure. We promote success.
Okay.